So what I'm going to do now is wire up an irrigation controller to 2 valves, just so that you get an idea of how it's done. So if you have a look, this is my controller of choice. It's a Rainbird ESP-ME. It's an expandable controller and it's Wi-Fi compatible. So you just put a dongle in here, and this controller can be operated from anywhere in the world using a phone or an iPad or a computer or any device that you can use the internet on with the app. So these controllers have a module in them, which is a base 4 station, and they go out to 22 stations by using modules. The tools that we're going to need to wire up these valves, you'll need obviously the cable, the controller, the solenoid valve, pliers, multi-grips, wire strippers, and a screwdriver. Now, we're only wiring up 2 solenoid valves, so obviously you'll need to use your imagination a little bit and imagine that these are in the ground already. Controller's on the wall, and then we're going to use this electrical cable. It's a low voltage wire to run a power source from the controller to the valves. So what I'm going to do is strip the wire back so that I can see the core inside it. So the cable that we use has a red sheath on the outside. It doesn't matter what color you have on the outside of your cable. It's just a protective coating that holds all these wires in place. I've got 5 core here, which is 5 individual cables with a black being one of them. It's standard for us to use black as a common, and it's I guess an industry standard in Australia. I'm not sure what it's like in the rest of the world, but that black cable then makes it easy when you have, I guess, a site that you're going back to where you've worked there before, or another contractor's worked there. This end of the cable is going to get wired into the controller, and the other end of the cable is going to go to the valves, and then when the valves need to be turned on, electricity will be sent through the common and the valve station that's operational. So station 1 will be that, station 2 will be that. It'll send power through black being the common, and whatever color you choose for station 1. So we'll use blue and brown for station 2. So black and blue will go to one valve, black and brown will go to another valve, and then it works from there. So what you want to do is strip back the cable, the black cable, using the appropriate strippage. So this is a 1/2 mil cable. We use 1/2 mil squared irrigation cable for residential irrigation systems with cable runs under 100 meters. When you're running out past 100 meters, you want to look at the voltage drop. So commercially you'd be using, come on Clint, there is no 1/2 mil one. So I'm trying to strip cable that doesn't, it's not on my tool. How did I get the first one? We're going to get these cables exposed. And as I've mentioned, the black is the common, so the black is going to get wired into C. The common unscrews with ease on paper. There we go. Just getting that early crack. So I'm going to unloosen. I'm going to loosen 1 and 2 as well, because we're using those, and get them ready to receive the cable. So we've got the black common, and then the red and the blue, as I mentioned. So some people might want to use pliers to support the cable, just because their fingers might be larger than mine. We've got a guy that works here that's got quite thick fingers, so he would use the pliers. My fingers are really slender. So you've got your blue going in, so there's your common is in there. We're going to stick the blue wire in 1 and tighten that up. And we're going to stick the brown, or red if you want to call that red, it's pretty brown, under 2. So as you'll see, we've got the numbers that I guess correspond with those screws. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Common is there. So we've got black going out to common, and then 1 and 2. So then we're down at this end, cutting cable that's wired directly into a mains powered device. The transformer here transforms the power down to 24 volt. So what I'm doing here is not going to be too dramatic if it was to buzz me, but I would suggest at home that you do this with the power off. I really don't want to wire these valves up, because otherwise they're going to be unusable. grab some other wire that looks like that. So what I've got here is 4 cables. And the idea behind these is to, I guess, replicate what would be coming off the top of these valves. So each valve has 2 cables coming off of there. I just don't want to wire these valves up because then they're going to be unsellable. So if you imagine that's a valve and that's a valve, ignoring that. So the wires that operate off the top of these valves are the same color because the coils that operate off these valves are alternating current, so it doesn't matter in which way they get wired up as long as that one valve gets wired up correctly and that one valve gets wired up correctly. So from the top of these valves, you've got 4 cables, right? 2 and 2. You take 1 from each valve, which I've done there, and they are going to get wired to the common. So that's valve 1 and that's valve 2, and that's the common wire. Then the other wire on the valve, so you see we've got this loose one here, we'll call that valve 1. That's going to get wired to the blue, and this other one hanging out here is going to get wired to the red. Does that make sense? So you got a cable from each valve, and if there's 5 valves, there'd be 5 of those in my hand plus the black, and all would go there, and then there'd be 1 to blue, 1 to brown, 1 to green, 1 to white, 1 to yellow, and so on. So what I'll do is replace those valves with the cables that we were talking about earlier. So that's exactly what I had in my hand before. Not exactly, a replica. So we're going to take a cable from each of those valves, which I've done there, and wire that up to the black. So then I'm going to stick them into a wire joiner without having any of the plastic removed, because these wire joiners will actually pierce, well, they'll cut around the plastic. And so if you can see that I like to hold these upside down when I'm doing a wire joiner so I can see inside. So you can see that the black's gone right through to all 3 of those tunnels. And then you're going to grab that with some pliers and just apply pressure to that there. And what that'll do, that's all the way in now, you'll see that it finishes flush. It grabs onto all those wires. So you'll see there, I've got the black, which is the common, wired up to a cable from each of the valves that we talked about before. Then we'll have the other 2, so these are the other 2 cables that are coming from each valve. So there's 1 coming off valve 1 and 1 coming off valve 2. So like I said, we were going to wire valve 1 to blue, same deal, slide them into there and crush it. Right, and then we've got the last cable there, which is we're going to join to the red cable. So this is valve 2. We'll slide that in there and crush it. Now, on an installation on site, these 2 cables that we've got spare, you put small gel connectors over the top of them. So we slide that into the gel connector. Actually, we can put them both in there. They're not going to be doing anything with each other. So all they're doing is protecting the ends of those wires from getting wet inside a valve box. So you could label them with some tape and write, redundant or not used. Up here you could do the same. It's not as vital up here because those 2 cables are inside a control box, which is an outdoor control box. This would have a lid that closes over. I'd cover them with some electrical tape or something. So there you go, you've got nice clean silicone filled gel connectors that are going to stop the wires from getting damaged. When you turn on valve 1, electricity will run down the black and the blue. So it'll create a circuit that goes through these coils, lifts the pin inside that coil electromagnetically and pops it open with a pressure change in the valve. Water continues to run through that valve until the electricity is cut, drops the pin, changes the pressure inside the valve, and the valve closes. And that is it. So that's how you wire up 2 solenoid valves from a controller. If you're doing 3 valves, 4 valves, 5 valves, you'd work out continuously from that. So you'd go to, you'd have the common, which is the black cable, wired to 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 valves, 1 from each. Not, obviously, you don't want to get confused. So you want to have 1 from 1, 1 from 2, 1 from 3, 1 from 4, 1 from 5, and so on. So that is it. If you've got any questions, please feel free to comment below, email us, Facebook message us, however you want. We're more than happy to help.